Hey, so I've been working on a video game. Before we get into that though, let me introduce myself. I'm Rancic, a programmer and a hobbyist game developer. I've been making games on and off for about 5 years now, and only recently really committed to finish a project. I probably made more progress in my game dev journey in the last 3 months than the whole past 5 years combined. I will get into that a little bit later. First, let's talk about Magus Parvus, which is a 2D top-down mage game where you cast spells by typing their name. You can play it in your browser over an itch. I would like to know what you think about the casting system, as it is rather unique. The spells you cast are in Latin because that's obviously super cool. It does make the casting surprisingly hard though, as you don't have the muscle memory to type something like scutum glace. Or at least you shouldn't. There are also some issues concerning the depth of the system. While there are some incentives to cast different spells, they all deal the same type of damage and only a few of them have secondary effects. I have some ideas of how this could be fixed, but I wanted the game to be small in size and scope. Perhaps this is for a future game. I'm quite happy with how the graphics of the game turned out. You may think that the art looks a bit inconsistent, and that is because it is. I didn't create a single sprite for this game. They're all from free asset packs. The whole game is open source, and as a result, I was only able to use free asset packs that would permit me to put them on a public repository. There are a surprising amount of high quality assets though, so this wasn't really an issue. The music is also incredibly good. Somewhat repetitive, but perfect for this type of game. Most of the sounds of this game are self-made, as it's harder to find sound effects that fit your needs. The slam sounds, for example, are all made by my mouth. Using pre-made assets as much as possible and not trying to make everything myself was a lesson I had to learn the hard way. In my past game attempts, I tried to make all assets on my own, which is just not feasible, especially if you want to create something that looks decent. There's no shame in using asset packs, and I actually found that it can spark my creativity because I'm limited to the assets that I find and have to adjust gameplay elements accordingly. The game is rather short, you can beat it within a few minutes, but the point of this project wasn't to create a fully fledged game that has hours of content. Instead, I wanted to make a simple 2D mage game and learn the Bevy engine. In case you've never heard of it, Bevy is a relatively new engine, being only 3 years old at this point. That being said, compared to both Unity and Godot, I feel like I can make much faster progress, as the workflow is quite different compared to the other engines. This is mostly due to the fact that Bevy uses an ECS system, while Unity and Godot use object-oriented programming patterns. I find it much easier to write more complex system in the ECS system. Bevy is still in an early stage though, so there are quite a lot of features missing. When it comes to the nitty-gritty, like managing animations, triggering events on specific keyframes, or anything with sprites really, Bevy still needs a lot of work. For example, there is no shader support for sprites as of now, only for materials which are really tedious to use in 2D. Then there's also the UI, but I want to keep this video family friendly, so I chose to leave it out. While it is possible to create games already, if you don't have the time to build some of the tools yourself, it is going to be very tough. There are also no complete walkthroughs, at least no up-to-date ones. I personally plan on starting to make tutorials and walkthroughs once Bevy 0.13 comes out. While on topic of future plans, what kind of games do I plan to make? Well, very simple. I plan to eventually work on my dream game, which is a 2D top-down open-world RPG with a heavy emphasis on magic and combat in general. It's rather ambitious, I know. I'm well aware that my current level is way too low to tackle this boss, so I'm leveling up and expanding my skills by grinding through enemies I can take on. So with that in mind, my future games are supposed to teach me skills and lessons that are going to be useful for this dream game. If that sounds interesting, well, you know what to do. During the development of Magus Parvus, I already learned a ton about making 2D games. For example, I learned about chunk loading, collisions and physics in Bevy, basic player-enemy behavior, implementing Sword, which of course is not built into Bevy, how to make the art style consistent when using assets, and of course, making UI. If you want a more detailed retrospect of the development of the game, check out my blog where I wrote about the more technical stuff. There's a lot more that I could talk about, but that's where I'm gonna leave it for today. Go play the game on itch and try to beat my time. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.